Hey, folks, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the country, around the world. Thanks a ton for joining us. My name is Logan, and I'm joined here by John Paul Kleiner. He's going to walk us through all about studying in Germany at the bachelor or master's level. He's an expert. I've heard him speak before, very knowledgeable guy. So if you have any questions at all, please do drop them in the chat, in the Q&A. We'll tackle them maybe through the show, maybe at the end. We'll see how it plays out. But we're very glad to have you here. Of course, the session is being recorded. We will share it tomorrow morning with everyone who registered. So if you need to bail out midway, no problem. You can check in on the video tomorrow. So without further ado, thanks again for your time. Thanks, John Paul, for joining us here, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Logan, and allow me to also extend my thanks to all of you for taking the time to be here today. My name is John Paul Kleiner, and I am with DAAD. You can see our logo here in the corner, and you also see our slogan, helpfully in German, Wandel durch Austausch. So that means change by exchange. And DAD is the German acronym for the German Academic Exchange Service. And I'll be telling you a little bit about us in the course of this presentation, but the focus is very much today on degree studies in Germany, with a real emphasis on bachelor and master's level. So I'm going to start sharing my presentation with you now. Bear with me. All right. So, here we go. Study in Germany, what Canadian students need to know. So, give you a sense of what is in store. As I mentioned, I'll be telling you a little bit about the organization that I work for, what we do, why we do it. You have found your way to this session. So you can probably answer the question, why Germany? I'm going to try to add some more reasons to that for you. I'm going to give you an introduction to a very useful online resource, the Study in Germany web portal, and then we'll get into some of the details here. So admission requirements, how you find a study program, pathway programs that exist for qualifying for study, and then the application process, how to apply. And then I'm going to close with introducing a couple of funding programs that we offer through the organization that I work for, DAAD. But let's kick things off here with what is DAD introducing you to us. As you will have seen on my backdrop, perhaps DAD is celebrating its centennial year this year. We were founded in 1925. We are a public agency with member institutions. So what that means is we are made up of the German universities, and we represent them worldwide. And our primary mandate is to help them internationalize. We were founded, as I mentioned, 100 years ago in the wake of World War I, when Germany found itself very isolated and looking for ways to reconnect with the world in a positive way. And one of the interesting things about DAD is that it was actually founded by students. So a group of German students had private connections to the United States and wanted to go abroad for what we would understand as like a study abroad year or semester. And those pathways simply didn't exist in the 1920s. So they came back to their German university and asked about this, and the president of the university took it to some of his colleagues, and out of that, DAD was born. So when we talk about helping universities internationalize, that's kind of abstract. What we really are is a information counseling organization and a funding organization. So we are the world's largest provider of academic mobility funding. So we fund students and faculty at all ages and at all stages and in all fields from around the world who need to go to Germany for study or research. But we also do counseling, the kind of work that I'm doing here today on studying and researching in Germany. I'm based here in Canada. I sit in Toronto, and I'm responsible for liaising with Canadian universities primarily, but I also do appear at education fairs, and I'm always pleased to be at the Study and Go Abroad education fairs when I can. They're an excellent way for us to connect with our target group. To give you a sense of, the scale of what we do, last year, DAAD moved more than 140,000 scholars, so students and professors, from the world to Germany and from Germany to the world. And to do that, we need a lot of funding. 837 million euro budget in 2023. So that's over 1.2 billion Canadian dollars. And that money, as I mentioned, comes overwhelmingly from the public purse. So 2 German federal ministries are our primary funders. But our focus here today will be less on DAD funding programs and more on degree studies in Germany. So, as I mentioned, you can probably answer this question for yourself already to a degree. In my work, I see that Germany is attractive to students because of the strong reputation of its university system. It's one of the world's oldest university systems. It has a well-earned reputation for high quality of teaching and research at those institutions. The fact that is also getting more widely known is that the value proposition of studying in Germany is very good. Many people have heard about tuition-free studies in Germany, and this is indeed true. It's not across the board. There are some differences, but even in the case where there are tuition fees called for, particularly at public universities, you will find that these fall below what you would expect to pay here in Canada, certainly. So it's a very, very good deal to go and do a degree there. If you're doing studies at the graduate level in particular, where you need access to research infrastructure, German universities tend to be very well equipped in that regard too. So that's something that also does drive interest. I want to say that one of the distinguishing features of studying in Germany now is the very international nature of German campuses. So similar to Canadian universities, there are a lot of students from abroad in Germany. The percentage last fall, with the last figures I saw, was around 17%. So this will vary by campus to campus, but that's the average. Why is that important? Well, German universities are expecting you. They have staff and programs to help international students integrate, acculturate, and succeed. So you wouldn't be alone. There'd be many thousands of other students from abroad at your German university. And I think that that's something that can be quite reassuring if you're coming from abroad. And Germany is now the 3rd most popular destination worldwide. So it's the #1 destination for non-English speaking country. And how have they done that? Well, somewhat paradoxically, perhaps, they've done it by offering literally hundreds of English language degree programs. So that has opened up the German university system to students from all over the world. It's important to note that the vast majority of those English programs come at the master's level. Bachelor degree studies in Germany tend to be overwhelmingly in German. They are very much focused on domestic students, training German students from Germany for work in that country. And as a result, German is the preferred language. There are, however, English language study programs at the bachelor level. So if you don't speak German, there are opportunities for you worth looking into. And when I say looking into studying in Germany, I would suggest that you bookmark the URL at the bottom of this page on the left-hand side. If you're interested in doing degree studies in Germany, particularly bachelor and master's, this site is for you, the Study in Germany web portal. And it really is designed for international students who are considering relocating to Germany to do a degree. And it aims to provide you with answers to all the questions that you will have. So it is quite comprehensive. It addresses the academic side of things, a lot of what I'll be talking about here today, but also the logistical side of things. So these would be things like living arrangements, working, that sort of thing. Cost of living, all those things are addressed in Study in Germany. So have a look at the site. In particular, keep an eye out for the Plan Your Studies tab, which is found in the navigation bar at the top of the landing page there. That really is a step-by-step guide to doing a degree in Germany, and you'll find all the different relevant sections in there. So study in Germany, can't emphasize enough. You'll find answers to a lot of your questions in there. Now, this focus is very much on accessing degree studies for students from Canada. So this would be students who have done a high school diploma in this country, typically in the public school system. So, in a nutshell, there are 2 provinces where direct entry to bachelor studies is possible with the high school diploma. Those are Ontario with the OSSD, so the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, and Quebec with the Cégep Diplôme d'études collégiales, so the DEC. For the other provinces and territories, direct entry is not an option. So I will speak in a little bit about the pathways that would exist for you. You're not entirely shut out, but you will have to take certainly an additional step before German universities could consider your application. So that's the lay of the land generally. Now let me spend a couple of minutes speaking about the specific requirements. So Germany, for those of you who are not familiar with its secondary school system, they have an academic stream high school, which is called the gymnasium. And the gymnasium is academically quite rigorous. It has a broad and demanding curriculum, which students have relatively little choice in. And in order to attend university in Germany, you need to have the Abitur, which is the diploma that students from this kind of school earn. And if you're coming from abroad, as an international student, you need to demonstrate an equivalent level of academic achievement. And the challenge is, here in North America certainly, students at the high school level tend to have a lot more choice than they do in the gymnasium, the German academic high school. And as a result, they tend not to tick all the boxes that are necessary. So there's information on what these minimum requirements are. I'm going to go into some detail for Ontario, talk about it a bit about Quebec. If you speak German or know someone who does, you can find information on this in the database that outlines these standards. It's called Anabin. So you see the URL here. One of the other questions that I get often is for people who are familiar with the German school system, they have a different grading system. How do they convert it? They have a formula, of course, called the modified Bavarian formula. You see it below. And this is how they transfer our percentage marks system into their grading 1 to 5 system. So rest assured, there's a even-handed way of looking at your grades, but that tends not to be the issue. So that's a little bit of general information. Now let's dive deeper into the specifics. So for those of you who are from Ontario, attending public schools, working towards an Ontario secondary school diploma, these are the minimum requirements. So I want to emphasize that. You need to have met these minimum requirements in order for a German university to be able to consider your application for bachelor studies. So a study program, a degree program can ask for higher grade point average, perhaps some other coursework in addition to these, specific emphases in your high school. That's information you can get from the degree program office that oversees this, but these are what you need. So basically, you need 6 university preparatory courses in your grade 12 year. Your average needs to be a minimum of 65%. So overall grade point average 65. And in terms of what those 6 university preparatory courses are, you need 2 languages. So here is where most Canadian students fail, Ontario students, is the 2 language requirement. So if you're English speaker, native English speaker, mother tongue English, you'll need to have English plus another language. There are some schools in Ontario, a handful, who offer French instruction primarily. You'd have to have French plus another language. So you can have English and French, English and German, English and Spanish, whatever. You need to have 2 languages up to grade 12 on your transcript. I often get the question, I speak 3 other languages at home. Will that compensate for just having English to grade 12? Unfortunately, no. The Germans need to see you having had 2 languages during your high school up to grade 12. In terms of your mathematics, you need to have both advanced functions and calculus and vectors on your grade 12 transcript. You need 1 of chemistry, physics, or biology, and then 2 additional subjects. So if you're taking a full slate of the natural sciences, all 3, chemistry, physics, biology, that would fit the bills. If you have chemistry, then you need 2 other subjects up to grade 12 with the UPC, so university preparatory courses. So, or advanced placement if you have that. So they want the high academic level in 6 courses. All right, so that's Ontario. As I mentioned, in Quebec, it's a little bit more flexible. You need to be working towards the DEC, d'études collégiales, and then you need to have anywhere between 24 and 28 successful courses, so passing that many courses in your diploma. It's very much driven. You might not get general entry, so be admissible to any study program in Germany, but with the DEC, depending on what you want to study, if you have the right course combination on your transcript, you could be eligible for direct entry. So that's why they say it's possible. This is something that you need to pursue with the degree program office in Germany. So I'll talk a little bit about how you can reach them in a few minutes. Now, maybe we have some students here who are doing the International Baccalaureate. The IB diploma is quite similar in its requirements to the German Abitur, the gymnasium diploma that you earn. So there are pathways in. You're going to receive these slides. I'm not going to go through in great detail, but it's not dissimilar to what you saw in Ontario in terms of what they ask for. It's just, it breaks it down in the language that the IB program uses. So again, you need the 2 languages, at least 1 natural science, math, 2 advanced maths, and then 1 social science is a requirement. So then they outline what that 6th course might be down here in the green section. In terms of math, so if you're looking for general eligibility to any bachelor study program, you need to have the high-level math and the natural science at the SL level, so the standard level. If you have your math at the standard level and a natural science at the higher level, then you can be eligible for certain specific programs. But if you want to be generally admissible, you do need to have the higher level mathematics courses. Information on the IB requirements, and they get quite specific, can be found in a very helpful handbook that my colleague in our San Francisco office created. So if you're interested in that, you'll find it for download at this QR code link. It's on the DAD US website, and the information in there is applicable to IB students here as well. So have a look. If you have questions about IB, I'll give you my contact information at the end. You can reach out if there are specific issues that remain open. But, finding a study program. So as I mentioned, we have this very useful web portal, Study in Germany, and nested in there, in the section I mentioned, the Plan Your Studies, there is a whole subsection on finding a study program. So in there, you will be directed to a couple of different study program databases. So these are really good tools for identifying specific degree programs that meet your interests and needs. The one that I'm going to highlight here is the one that I would start with. You'll be not surprised to hear that we were involved in creating it. It's called My Guide. You can find it at the link at the top here, myguide.de. The advantage of My Guide is this is an online database that you need to register in order to access. So once you've registered with the site, you'll have your own account. And the upside of that, well, there are several really. One, with your account, you're able to save your searches. A lot of the other study program databases are simply online tools. You have a visit, and once you leave the site and go back, your information is no longer there. In My Guide, you can save it. The other great advantage is that you can contact the study programs that are of interest to you through the app, through the site. So your communications with the program offices are contained inside your account as well. And when you do a search on My Guide, you'll be answering a few simple questions about, your area of interest, the level of study you're interested in, the language of instruction. So if you have to study in English, you can indicate, please only generate the English language programs, any number of criteria, and then it will, of course, generate the matches. And when you then click on those matches, you'll find information immediately about, are there tuition fees? Are there semester fees? What are those? So you'll see very transparently what the costs are that are involved with the specific degree program. It'll give you information there on how you would apply. And most importantly, it gives you contact information. You will undoubtedly have questions. And I'll underscore here, the best source of information is always the program offices for the degrees that you are interested in. These are the people who manage the degree. They will be able to tell you what the requirements are, clarify questions, uncertainties you may have. And so I always, there's a wealth of information online, but if you have questions, get in touch with them directly. So you'll use My Guide. You will see also in Study in Germany that there are other options. There's the Higher Education Compass, for instance, and there are other tools online. I encourage you to spend not just time in one. Most of the information you will find in these databases is the same, but they are certainly not identical. So you will find study programs in each that aren't in the others. So it's worth your time casting the net a little bit more broadly. But I would say start with My Guide and see where that takes you. So at the end, then you're going to have a short or maybe a long list of programs that are of interest to you. So I know one of the questions that I frequently asked is about university rankings. So you can see that in the second point here. Germany does, of course, have university rankings. The best known ones are put together by a research institute called the CHE, the Center for Higher Education. And we include their rankings on the DAD Germany website. You can find those online here in English. And that's one information point that will give you a sense of the highest ranked, universities, programs in your field of interest. Now, make sure with rankings to know what it is they're ranking. It may be that they're measuring things that are of less value to you, and you should weight that information accordingly. I would suggest that the key thing to do would be to speak to people who have experience in the German system. And we're very fortunate here in Canada. We have many German expats teaching at our universities across the disciplines in all the different fields. So what I would suggest is, if you're considering doing studies in Germany, to first identify faculty from Germany or who have worked with Germany in your field at a Canadian university. So say you're interested in engineering, let's say mechanical engineering, go to the faculty listings, for Canadian universities that have a strength in mechanical engineering. Go through the faculty listings, click on the profiles, and see if you can find people who have earned their PhDs in Germany, done graduate studies in Germany, are doing research with German partners. And once you have those lists, I suggest reaching out to them. If they're in the city or in the region that you're in, you could write and ask for a meeting. I would suggest that when you reach out to them, you send an email, introduce yourself, explain your interest, and maybe include your high school transcripts or university transcripts if you're thinking about masters, and say you're looking for input. You have maybe a short list. You could include that information and say, would it be possible to get their opinion on these programs, any suggestions they might have? That information, that will take some work, but I would suggest that is far more valuable than any ranking system that you could find. So it's worth doing the legwork, reaching out to people. I think you'll find with a lot of professors too, they like to mentor enthusiastic young students. So if you can show that you're one of them, I think you'll find that they will be keen to connect with you. Now, I mentioned that there are really only 2 jurisdictions, 2 provinces in Canada where direct entry is really a possibility: Ontario and Quebec. So for the rest of you, there are a couple of pathways in. Germany organizes higher education very similar to Canada. It's the provinces that have the responsibility for it. And so as a result, you have a system which is not uniform. All study programs, though, have pathway programs that will allow international students to qualify for entry into bachelor studies. I'll talk about masters in a minute. We're talking about bachelor here. The most common model historically is the Studienkolleg, or the study college. So these are study programs for international students that offer 1 semester or full year studies with an aim to bringing up a student to the acceptable academic standard for studies in Germany. Some of these Studienkollegs are attached to universities. Some of them are independent. If you don't qualify for direct entry, I suggest 1, identifying specific bachelor programs of interest to you in Germany, and then writing to them directly to ask about your eligibility. Include your high school transcript, express your interest in their program, and ask if they could consider an application from you. Ask them for information on what qualifying or pathway programs they offer. So in the event that you don't qualify, what pathway would come into question for you? So some of these programs are arranged in such a way that if you complete them successfully, you're guaranteed entry into that degree study program. In other cases, you're simply then eligible to apply. There's no guaranteed entrance. Studienkollegs are taught in English and in German. As I mentioned, they go for 1 or 2 semesters. If you're studying in German, they tend to be tuition free. In English, there are usually fees attached to them. Sometimes students get put off by this, and I can understand that. It seems like it's lengthening your studies unnecessarily. One of the great things about doing a Studienkolleg is it really does introduce you to the German academic culture, which is quite different than we have here in North America. So spending that time in Germany ramping up for university can be time very well spent. So that's basically some information on the Studienkollegs. I will say that the other possibility for Canadians who don't qualify for direct entry would be to start your university studies here in Canada, do 1 full year successfully in the program area that you want to pursue in Germany, and then contact the German university directly, the study program there that you're interested in, and say, I'm interested in transferring in. So the challenge with that is there's no formal system for transfers. It's up to each study program individually. Some will entertain this, some will not. As people change at the top of those programs, that policy may change as well. So it's really, there's not a lot of certainty to it. So that's a downside. The other thing is, similar to transferring between institutions, say in Canada, for instance, if you started at the University of Alberta and wanted to transfer to the University of Toronto, it wouldn't be unusual for the University of Toronto to say, yeah, sure, you're welcome here, you're a good student, but unfortunately, we can't give you credit for all of the work you've done. So that's one other potential hurdle that some people see. You might not get full credit for all that you have done. But if you do a full year of university study here in Canada, and you want to study in the same field in Germany, the good thing about that is you're then considered a university student, and that's equivalent. Whereas at the high school level, there's often this inequivalency that is seen by the German universities. So this is a lot of information. I hope you're still with me. Now, another way, and I want to introduce this briefly. So if you're at the high school level and you are really interested in studying in Germany, and you want to open up the opportunities to you by learning German, our partners at the Goethe Institute, which is Germany's cultural agency, offer a program here in North America called Study Bridge or Studienbrücke. And this is a program that is focused on high school students with an interest in STEM fields. And it's a program of study that runs over the full term of your high school studies in parallel to it. So there are courses that augment what you're learning at the Canadian high school. So particularly in STEM related fields, so that you're at the German university prep level to ensure that, but you also learn German over the years. And that includes stays, immersive stays in Germany in the summer. So there are fees, of course, involved with this program. But the good thing about Studienbrücke is it's offered in partnership with several German universities, including several very renowned German institutions. And students who complete the study bridge are guaranteed spots in bachelor programs offered by those schools. So this is a way to really prepare yourself for German university studies and make sure you got a spot in their institution when you're done. So that's Study Bridge. All right. So let's say you found some programs that are interested, you're convinced, you want to at least explore the possibility, you want to apply. So there are two paths to applying to university in Germany. Most German study programs, degree programs, work with an organization called Uni Assist, which is basically an organization that accepts applications from international students and makes sure that their applications meet the minimum standards laid out by both ANABEAN, which we talked to before, the very general requirements, and those set by the study program. So the universities tell them what the requirements are, and Uni Assist's job is to go through the applications that come from international students and say, yes, this one passes, this one passes. They don't make the decision whether you get in. They simply pass the qualifying applications on to the university so that they can make the decisions themselves. So that's how Uni Assist works, and the majority of study programs in Germany work with them for their international student applications. Some university programs, though, do accept applications directly, and you will find that information in those matches that you find in the program databases. You'll find the details on how to apply. Most of the time, you'll see it goes through Uni Assist. Uni Assist is a fee-based service. It's not exorbitant, but you pay a certain amount for the first one and then an additional cost for each one. The great thing about Uni Assist is it really is their job to ensure that you are providing the correct information. So if you give them enough time, so I would say you want to apply as early as possible, at least 8 weeks before the application deadline, the Uni Assist team has time to go through your material and communicate back to you and say, look, you're great for 7 of the 8 documents. This one is missing or this one isn't correct. And you have a chance to react and make sure that your application is full and complete. So that's basically the two different things. In terms of the application window, so you may know the academic year in Germany runs a little different than it is here. They don't start until early or mid-October. Then they run until early in the new year. They take a longer break, and then they come back in April to July. So it runs differently than ours. Their application windows go from mid-March to the end of July, somewhere in there. It varies widely. So it depends on what degree you're interested in. Again, when you go into the database and find the programs, you'll find the information on the application windows, but it's quite different from here. But they're open right now. So let me spend just a brief minute talking about master's studies. So for those of you who have come here looking for information on that, I can give you the happy news that it is much less complicated. If you do a bachelor degree at recognized Canadian university and you want to pursue master's studies in Germany, there should be zero issue with degree recognition. So as long as you're studying in the same or a very similar field, your Canadian bachelor degree will be recognized by the German university. As I mentioned at the outset, if you don't speak German at the master's level, that becomes significantly less of an issue. There are over 1,900 English language master's programs on offer in Germany. So really across the disciplines. I think it's safe to say that regardless of what field you're looking to study, you will find an English language master's program for that in Germany. Now, if you're looking to do professional studies in Germany, anything that's governed by a college here in Canada, and you're thinking about taking your German qualifications and coming back to Canada to work, now that is possible, but I would say it's important to discuss the governing body for that work here in Canada before you start doing your studies in Germany. Professional studies in Germany is designed to train people to work in Germany and in some cases in Europe. It's not intended as an export education. It can be used that way, but it's better to inform yourself at the outset about what situations, what regulations exist in your field before you do the studies and then are disappointed. So that is the caveat. But let me say, masters really very smooth. Insofar as Canadians go to do degree studies in Germany, it's far more common at the master's level than the bachelor's level. Numbers are growing at the bachelor level as well, but it really is masters where things open up dramatically. And let me just take, before we go to questions, a minute to introduce, I mentioned we're a funding organization. So we have two programs that I would say are most broadly relevant. If you choose to do your bachelor studies here in North America at a Canadian or an American university, and you're looking to study in STEM, so natural sciences or engineering, life sciences, I want to point you towards the RISE Global Link Research Internship. So this is a program we offer to bachelor students in those fields, so STEM, natural science, life science, engineering. And it's a 3-month summer research internship in Germany in the lab of a German doctoral student. You would typically go after your 3rd year of study, although in some cases 2nd years are selected as well. And basically you spend your time, your summer in Germany working as the research assistant to a German PhD student. No German is required. The working language in the lab is German. You receive a cost of living allowance from our partners, MyTax, which is a Canadian organization. So that would cover your rent, your food. Your host is responsible for helping you find accommodation while you're there. You would receive also a travel stipend to cover the costs or most of the costs of your transatlantic flight. And you get one of the nice perks of RISE is there's an annual meeting of all of the RISE grantees every summer in the German city of Heidelberg, one of its most beautiful cities and oldest university towns. where they all come together, and there's several hundred of them, to share information about their experience and the research that they're doing with one another. So you would meet people also from Canada, from the US, from England and Ireland, I believe. So it's a really mixed group. It's literally a once in a lifetime chance to connect with very interesting people from around the world and have this really transformative experience doing research in Germany already when you're an undergrad. Now, if you're not on the STEM side, or even if you are, and you do your bachelor degree here in Canada, and then you're thinking, oh, I want to do masters, we have a scholarship for graduates of Canadian bachelor programs who go to Germany to do master's studies. It's called the Study Scholarship. And what it does is it provides you with a monthly living allowance for up to 2 years while you are in Germany doing your master's. And 2 years is the standard length of a master's degree there. This also includes insurance coverage, so health insurance for the duration of your studies, and two travel stipends for the transatlantic flights, one for each year. You would be applying to us typically in the fall of your final year of studies here in Canada. So last year, fourth year typically, you would apply to us for a scholarship. And then you could, if you got it, you would go over to Germany the next year. If the study program you're doing is tuition free and you get the scholarship, you could potentially do an entire master's degree at no charge. So if that's something that is of interest to you, you can find information on both RISE and the study scholarship on the DAD Canada website, the address for which you find at the bottom of the page here. You're going to receive these slides. You'll get my email address. I have a monthly newsletter that comes out that keeps people up to date on our application deadlines, on activities that we have going on. I do travel across the country, so in some cases you might find things on there that would be relevant, interesting to you. I would love to have you subscribe to the newsletter. You can do so at the link found here. We're also on Facebook. Who knows? We may one day join the 21st century, but as long as I'm in charge, I think that's going to be a bit challenging. But at any rate, this is the information. There's a lot of it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we have some time for questions. So if there are any, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, John Paul. We do indeed have a few lined up from folks in the chat. So, folks, if you do have other questions, please do drop them in and we'll get to as many as we can. Some of these have been addressed sort of in discussion. You talked about admission requirements for masters as well as professional programs like law, and also covered undergrad admissions for IB students. So thank you for anticipating some of the questions. Here's a couple that maybe we haven't heard too much on yet. One is specifically about university sports at German University. Do you know anything about trying out recruitment to play for a university sports team?
So, very interesting question. So, sport culture at German universities is quite different from here. So, inter-varsity competitive sports are not nearly as widespread as they are here. Sport activity in Germany tends to be organized in local clubs. So this is, and Germans are very much, it's a very much a club culture. A lot of German social activities happen through these clubs, and sport clubs are one kind, very popular kinds of clubs. So there are some schools that do have teams, etc. It plays a much lower role than it does here in North America, certainly in the United States, and even here in Canada. So that's something that if that's important to you, if you go on the German university's website, you'll be able to tell fairly quickly to what degree they have anything like that. As I say, in my experience, it tends to be not so common at all. So, and the other element to that is often around scholarships, right? So we're very familiar with student athletes being recruited and offered scholarships as an incentive to attend one school or the other. In Germany, scholarships are far less common than here because of the largely tuition-free nature of studies there. So that is seen as the scholarship that already pre-exists. Because you're having tuition-free studies, essentially everyone is already getting a scholarship. Now, as I said, There are exceptions to that. Not all programs are tuition free, but the vast majority for German students, especially because, as I mentioned, studies in German tend to be tuition free. So it's where they start doing in English, where costs get higher, then they start looking to offset that. Long-winded answer, but interesting question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it was Sophia, maybe. Sorry if I'm wrong on that. We do have plenty more as well, so let's speed along while we have time. This one's kind of specific about York University here in Toronto. I guess they have an undergrad sort of year abroad or degree exchange in Germany specifically. I guess I'm just curious if you know anything about how that works at York or other similar schools where you might do a year abroad, but then come back here to finish third and fourth year. Yeah, any experience with the sort of year abroad rather than the full degree?
Sure. So every Canadian university that I've worked with has German partner institutions. They tend to have memorandums of understanding with these German partners, and those typically include the opportunity for student exchange. So York, I know from having worked there in the past, has a number of German partners, and the opportunity exists for students to go and spend a semester or a year abroad at a partner school and receive full credit for the work that they do there. So this tends to be a reciprocal arrangement. German students would come to York. York students could go to that partner school. So that's something that the York International Office or your study abroad office at any Canadian university will be able to tell you about. Often the universities have bursaries that are available for their students to facilitate that type of activity and help defray the costs of participating. But I would say if you want to find out about the opportunities available to you at York, go to York International. Otherwise, if you're Canadian, any other Canadian university, they will have those. If you're a high school student and you're considering your options and going abroad is important to you, I would say make part of educating yourself about your Canadian university, the options that they give. These vary quite widely. Some of them are really, really good and strong in this area. Others have simply less on offer. So if that's important to you, make sure that it's one of the things that you're being informed about and you include it in your evaluations. There are schools that are stronger and less strong in that area. So those things exist widely. Every Canadian university has German partners. So if you're interested in doing a traditional exchange semester, study abroad semester, there will no doubt be pathways for you.
Cool. Appreciate that response, John. Thanks for that. Quick one here. This one is about Ontario standard high school diploma versus IB. Is there a preference? Would schools look more favorably upon the IB, or is it all kind of come out in the wash?
So, I mean, as you have seen, there are specific boxes you need to tick with each one. I will offer you I'm based in Ontario. I have a child who went through IB. I'm familiar with the general Ontario high school system. I would say, from a German perspective, I don't think most study offices would draw a huge distinction between the two. I will say, however, that IB does a much better job of preparing you for the reality of university studies in Germany than the standard Ontario curriculum does or can. So that would be the difference there. There may be some individual programs which would give a bonus to the IB. It's certainly a familiar qualification there, but I don't think by and large you'll see the separation. I think that the difference would be that you're simply going to be much better prepared for what's coming at you if you do the IB program than if you do the standard Ontario secondary school diploma. Now, this is not to suggest that there aren't rigorous programs in the public system. I know, or through the OSSD, I know they exist. Generally speaking, that is the advantage.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that kind of makes sense and accords pretty closely with what I've heard from other schools and other jurisdictions as well. Okay, great. So real quick one here. We've talked quite a bit about Canadian students. We're both here in Ontario, but students from other nationalities are eligible to apply as well. There's no restrictions.
Absolutely. Yes. So the system, so I'm talking from the Canadian perspective and what the requirements are here. Those requirements exist worldwide. So you can find that information out in a variety of places. I would start Study in Germany, the web portal there, completely relevant for students from any corner of the globe. There are tools in there for determining your eligibility. The other thing I would say is if you're joining us from elsewhere in the world, DAD has a network of offices, and I think I alluded to that all around the world. There is a DAD regional office that is responsible for your country, regardless of which country you're in.
Hmm.
So what I would suggest to you, if you want to find which one it is, Google or search the web with DAD network. And that will take you to a page on the DAD Germany website, which shows all of our offices worldwide. And you'll be able to determine which one from there corresponds to you. And the staff, and so you go visit their website, they'll have information. If you don't find the answers, contact them. They are really the experts for your questions.
Appreciate that. Yeah, when in doubt, reach out is a good rule of thumb. Okay, so this is a sort of clarification question. A student who is in the process of applying to 4 German unis for an MA, and they want to confirm that they first apply to the school, receive an acceptance letter, then apply for scholarships, then apply for a student visa before solidifying living arrangements. Does that all track from your point of view?
Oh, Logan, I'm going to have to be the bearer of bad news now.
Okay.
All right. The study scholarship program, which I introduced. So this is the program that DAD offers to graduates of Canadian bachelor programs who are going to do masters. The deadline for that, for our application for the scholarship, is in the fall of your last year of study.
Hmm.
So if you are thinking of studying in Germany starting October of this year, the window for the study programs is still open, but unfortunately the window for the scholarship is closed. In order to receive the scholarship, you need to get it for both years of your study. So in other
Hmm.
words, if you apply to the German universities now and are accepted and start in the fall, you can't apply to DAD this fall for your second year of study. You have to apply to us in advance of starting the program. It is counterintuitive. It is frustrating. It is the way it is. So, and I'm not familiar. So I would suggest that if you're planning to study this fall, it's worth reaching out to your German degrees of choice and asking if they have any scholarships that they can point you to. They'll probably point you to us. In some rare cases, they do have endowed scholarships for international students. This is becoming something of a thing. And so it's worth asking. But I will tell you for DAD, unfortunately, that ship has sailed. In terms of the visa question, yeah, so what you'll need is a letter of acceptance from a study program in Germany. The international office at your German university will tell you what the process is. There's various ways of getting it. It's not an issue. Getting the visa is very similar to the situation that international students in Canada have. You need to show the financial means to cover your expenses while you're in Germany. So that usually takes the form of a blocked bank account with the necessary amount in it. If you receive the DAD scholarship, that circumvents the need for the blocked account. They will accept that as financial means. So yeah, that's the deal. So you're going to get my contact information. If I can be of any assistance, I will. I think I've answered that question, and I hope that I haven't
Uh,
disappointed you greatly.
I appreciate that. It's, yeah, probably not the news some folks want to hear, and actually anticipated a follow-up about the application window, which I think we have covered. Um, I want to do a quick follow-up just on that because we're on the topic. This one just came in. Would a student be eligible for the DAD scholarship if they apply for a grad program a few years after completing a bachelor's in Canada?
Fantastic. Great question. Yes, I should have covered that. Yes, you are. So we understand that you may want to take a break from studies. So you can apply for the study scholarship up to 6 years from the date after receiving your bachelor degree. So you do have a healthy window there. So there's no problem in taking a break, working for a couple of years, and then figuring out what you want to do. So yes.
Cool. Yeah, I like to hear that. 6 years is a nice,
Yeah.
generous chunk too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting tight on time. A couple more questions here. Curious if you know, is there any difference that you've experienced or heard about in terms of recognition here in Canada for a degree earned in Germany in German versus in English? Do
Oh, that's
employers know
interesting.
or care? Yeah, what do you think?
That's a really interesting question. I have never heard any feedback on that specific topic. So the more common question that I get in this regard is, are German degrees recognized in Canada? So I mentioned that a little bit about the professional studies angle. Um, the challenge can be Germany has over 400 universities. Canadians have heard of how many? So you're often going to be submitting a resume to employers who will not be familiar with an institution, whereas here in Canada, people have a sense, a hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera. So that tends to go out the window. So you're asking more of the employers. I would suggest this, though. The employers who will value that, and they exist, will immediately be drawn to it
Hmm.
and probably be familiar with it. So it really depends on what type of thing you're looking to do, but I would suggest that if you're looking to build your intercultural competencies in addition to getting that academic education, you will probably place a value on being in a workplace where that is valued. So you may run into situations where employers go, Universität Osnabrück, I don't know what that is. Um, I would suggest that the employer who then eliminates you on that is not a place you want to work anyway, probably. That's my guess. So, but I haven't heard anything about the language. I think that's interesting. My guess would be if you're able to demonstrate your English or French fluency, and I would assume that would be on the basis of your bachelor degree, there wouldn't be any issue. They would just see it as an asset or certainly not a negative. So,
Yeah, it seems like a perk to me. If I could put
exactly.
speaks fluent German on my resume, I would. Okay. A couple of more cues here. This one's interesting. This is from a German student who is pursuing an Ontario high school diploma, OSSD. Is the admission process different for somebody in that capacity? So German national, but here doing high school in Ontario. And
Right.
there's a follow-up too, which is about language requirements related to that. You know, go ahead.
I see. Right, right, right. So the German universities will assess you not on the basis of your citizenship, but on the basis of your academic record. So if you're doing the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, they are going to evaluate you as they would evaluate any other Canadian applicant. So that's the basic answer there. The requirements will be the same as they would for any other OSSD holder. In terms of the language, so if you have German, I'm guessing perhaps at home, but you've done the OSSD. So you'll have to meet those academic requirements in terms of the language. They will want proof if you're applying for a German language program, and that isn't evident from your transcript, which it probably won't be. There are different tests that they offer that are offered. So what you'll need to do is ask your degree program in Germany what test you'll need to do. There are avenues here. I mentioned the Goethe Institute. They offer tests that are typically recognized by the German universities, but generally speaking, the German university program will tell you which tests they accept, and then you can reach out to me or to Goethe Institute and we'll figure out, or you might have to do it in Germany depending on which version they're looking for. But that's
Getting into the weeds a little bit, and I guess we are at time as well. So, John Paul, before we let you go, I want to thank you, of course, for your expertise and for spending some of your time with us today. Is there any sort of last minute elevator pitch takeaway? What should folks who have tuned in today remember if they remember nothing else?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to present. Thanks for the great questions, really varied and salient, fantastic. What's the elevator pitch for studying in Germany? Well, I'm going to make so Germany, as I set the table at the outset, really does have a lot to offer in its university system. I would suggest now that bachelor studies are generally not enough anymore. So you're probably looking at doing 2 degrees. And if I were young and looking at that again, I would very definitely consider you should do your degrees at 2 different institutions, probably. And I would suggest strongly considering doing one of them abroad. And if that is of interest to you, I would look into what Germany has to offer. It's a great system. It covers the disciplines very, very well. The welcoming culture on German campuses tends to be quite strong. So there's a good, and the economics of education are not to be ignored. Germany is a good value for what you get. So that would be my pitch. It's doable in English. You're going to want to learn German. Life in Germany takes place in the German language, but don't be scared by that. This is an opportunity to enrich yourself and really open new opportunities. So it sounds trite, but I think it's true. So
Beauty. I might be applying myself at this rate. But thanks again, John Paul. Really do appreciate your expertise and your insight today. And thanks everybody for attending, whether you're watching live or via recording. Hope you got something out of it and have a great evening.